Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Tallywhacker.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show, Logically Left. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf, a logical lefty. All right, we got a lot of really fun stories, also disastrous stories, but of course the fun is Mamdani. Here we go. We've got Mamdani Mentum. Okay, I almost messed that one up. Mamdani Mentum. Good stuff, as always. Look, we got the MAGA meltdown, we got Donald Trump melting down, we got Laura Loomer, we got all the insane right-wingers that are molding, including, of course, Wall Street. They're also not happy about this. We've got that. We've also got Truth Social not doing well. Okay. I know, big shocker on that one.
Truth essential.
You mean they're still not a profitable company? Yes. True. We've got that. We have disastrous news, though, on Planned Parenthood. The SCOTUS decision that happened is not good. If you're somebody who relies on Medicaid and you actually want to get, I don't know, reproductive health services, STI screenings, cancer screenings, etc., then you're going to be out of luck, especially if you're in a red state. So I've got the details on that that I'm going to talk about. We have police being bastards and zip tying old people in wheelchairs. So I'm going to give you more of the details on that, but it's an absolutely horrific story that is, of course, going to be related to Trump's big nasty bill. And then finally, it looks like workers, or at least former employees of the government that have been doged, are being sent notices that they owe money. So, I mean, again, more disaster / rank incompetence / the result of Elon Musk's doging of federal agencies. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on today, a lot of stuff to report as usual. So thank you for joining me on today's show. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already, and get ready for some, again, fun and disaster and rage-inducing stories, as usual. Okay, so let's start out with, of course, Mamdani. Oh, they're so afraid of him. It's great. It's great. All right. Woo. It appears that both the Democratic establishment and MAGA are melting down over the shock win of Zohran Mamdani in the New York City mayoral primary that happened on Tuesday. CNBC reports that Wall Street is feeling alarmed. Oh, they're alarmed and depressed over his victory. You know, because it might mean having taxes get raised on the richest Americans. Can't have that.
Oh, no!
Exactly.
Can't let that happen.
So now, Philip Lafont, founder of the hedge fund Coates Management, told CNBC that a Mamdani win could trigger an exodus of wealthy investors to other states. Oh my goodness, no, they're running away.
Oh, no!
Oh, how sad. Whereas hedge funder and Trump supporter Bill Ackman said he woke up on Wednesday on his pile of money, I'm assuming, a little bit depressed by Mamdani's victory, which makes me think of there was that actor that had Woody Harrelson sitting on that pile of money, wiping his eyes with dollar bills. Oh, I'm so sad. Which, by the way, I like Woody Harrelson. So, but it's a reference to that movie. I forget which one. But anyway, we also have former DNC Treasury Secretary Larry Summers over on X writing this, quote, I am profoundly alarmed about the future of the DNC and the country. By yesterday's NYC anointment, he won an election, okay, of a candidate who failed to disavow a globalize the intifada slogan and advocated Trotskyite economic policy. Hey, Larry, cry more, bitch. Imagine saying that the party, okay, which is currently sitting at a 27% approval rating, all right, should not embrace change at all. Young, progressive change. That's what this is, okay? To keep doing what it's doing instead of supporting young, progressive populists like Mamdani, okay? That's what Larry Summers is doing. I am very, very concerned that we're actually going to change and help people. Oh, my God, how dare we?
Oh no!
Yeah, I'm using that a lot today, but you know what? That's their response. That's their response. Catherine Wild, president of the Partnership for New York City, told CNBC, quote, you're going to love this. Terror is the feeling. Terror. Yes, terror. Okay, at the idea of the wealthy being taxed a little bit more to ensure that people, that average citizens can ride public transportation for free, that rising rents will be frozen, okay, so that people can maybe actually afford to live in New York City for once. Oh my goodness. Apparently, though, working people being able to actually afford to live in the city, that inspires terror in the elites. Terror. That said, none of these responses are as unhinged as what's coming out of MAGA. Oh, yeah, those were tame. Okay. Oh, terror. Okay. I'm going to start with Chief Taco. Okay, Chief Taco, who took to his platform. Let me bring it up.
Truth essential.
To write this, in what I assume was a spittle-filled rage in a room with perhaps ketchup on the walls, give or take, I don't know. But he said this, quote, it's finally happened. The Democrats have crossed the line. Really? Well, that's all it took. Zora Mamdani, a 100% communist lunatic,
Pink-haired communist.
has just won the Dem primary and is on his way to becoming mayor. We've had radical lefties before, but this is getting a little ridiculous. He looks terrible. Really? Terrible? His voice is grating. He's not very smart. He's got AOC +3. Ooh, +3 what? I'm looking at stats here. AOC +3. No, I know what he means. Dummies all backing him, and even our great Palestinian senator, crying Chuck Schumer, is groveling over him. Yes, this is a big moment in the history of our country. Well, hey, you know what? He's right about that last part. It is a big moment because it shows how people power can come together and defeat big name recognition from a political dynasty, the Cuomos, and as well as millions of dollars in super PAC money, and of course, rank Islamophobia. Because that's what was arrayed against him and what continues to be arrayed against him because he's not mayor yet. Now, it also, by the way, shows you that the left and liberals, like Brad Lander, for example, can come together and they can ally. They could be good allies against a corrupt establishment. Remember, Lander and Mamdani, they cross-endorsed each other. And I think that made a pretty big impact in this race. And of course, it also shows the advantages of having a ranked choice primary, ranked choice voting. I mean, everything was perfect and fell into place for this. And I love it. Now, Trump's not done. Oh, no. He then offered his own new idea. Oh, you're going to love this. He said, after years of being left out in the cold, including suffering one of the greatest losses in history, the 2024 presidential election, again, that is true, the Democrats should nominate low IQ candidate Jasmine Crockett for president, and AOC plus 3 should be respectively vice president, and 3 high-level cabinet members of the cabinet. And to add it together with our future communist mayor of New York City,
Pink-haired communist.
Zohran Mamdani, our country is really screwed. Total meltdown. Okay, I absolutely love it. It's so beautifully unhinged. Okay, obviously Trump's racism is clearly on display here, referring to Jasmine Crockett, a black woman, as low IQ. And of course, Mamdani also calling him not very smart. Yeah, racism on display. But you know what, though? His idea is actually not a bad one. Crockett or AOC will probably clean Donald Trump's clock. Okay? Oof. I'd love to see it. If only the Democratic Party were that brave to put one of them up against him. An actual progressive. But anyway, that said, the rest of MAGA had their own idea on how to deal with Mamdani should he become the next mayor of New York City, and perhaps even before then. One of those ideas is to what? Deport him. Because of course. Of course. In fact, the New York Young Republican Club wrote on X, formerly Twitter, saying this: a call to action from the NYYRC, the radical Zohran Mamdani cannot be allowed to destroy our beloved city of New York. Okay. No, but they said the Communist Control Act lets President Trump revoke Mamdani's citizenship and promptly deport him. The time for action is now. Stephen Miller and Thomas Homan, New York is counting on you. Oh my God. That right there, I mean, they are so afraid that they are shitting themselves with fear. And say, oh, well, we have to get rid of him. We have to get rid of him. Well, we have to destroy democracy. We have to make sure that nobody gets a chance to vote for him because they'll vote for him. And oh my God, we got to get rid of him. Deport him now. Communism. They're scared. They're so scared. Okay, this is how people who are afraid act. Okay, if they weren't afraid of him, then I mean, they wouldn't be saying these things. They wouldn't be floating these unhinged ideas like literally stripping him of citizenship and deporting him. Okay, they cannot handle a Democratic Socialist winning a primary election, much less a mayoral election of one of the largest cities in the country. So, of course, they're going to want to deport him. It's disgusting, but it shows the level of fear that they have for someone like Mamdani, Now, Stephen Miller, of course, reacted, yes, the human Nosferatu, by claiming that his win is a result of migration, the great replacement kind of crap. In fact, he said, NYC is the clearest warning of what happens to a society when it fails to control migration. Oh, so you actually get what? The chance for a person who is a Democratic Socialist who actually wants to help average working people get into a position of power. That's what happens when you have migrant. Well, sign me up. Sign me up. But here's the thing, though, okay? Mamdani actually did very well among especially young, white voters. That's right. He actually received 36% of the Caucasian vote. Cuomo received about 25%. Now, where he crushed was among Asian voters. By the way, Asian voters in 2021 broke for Eric Adams. And so they switched from Adams to Mamdani. Now, that said, yes, he made a lot of inroads with black voters and Hispanic voters, but Cuomo did better with both of those groups. According to the New York Post, Mamdani swept the liberal bastions of Brooklyn and Fort Greene, which are predominantly white areas, but actually Mamdani did much better in areas where there is a lot of diversity, which shouldn't surprise us, okay? So that said, he had a pretty broad coalition of voters. White voters, of course, made up the second highest amount of Mamdani voters. So what's that whole thing about, oh, this is what happens when you have unchecked migration? No, here's the thing. In New York City, areas are very diverse, right? Meaning that the white people there are not afraid of other people, of black people, of Latinos, of Asians, etc. Why? Because they are friends, they are neighbors, they are husbands, wives, family, all of that different stuff. Okay? See, and this is what white supremacists are afraid of. When you get to know people of different ethnic backgrounds, turns out you stop being afraid of them because there's no reason to be afraid of them. You find out that they're just people just like you. I know. So, that said, of course, there was more racism from MAGA. Okay. For example, let me show you Charlie Kirk, who invoked 9/11. 24 years ago, a group of Muslims killed 2,753 people on 9/11. Now, a Muslim socialist is on pace to run New York City. Oh my God. I mean, it just like the racist bullhorns are going off. Okay, this is not one of those, one of those things where it's like, oh no, it's low key. No, it is in your face, over the top racism and Islamophobia. I mean, it really is amazing. And then you have, speaking of that, Laura Loomer. There will be another 9/11 in NYC, and Zohran Mamdani will be to blame. Oh, okay, just right out there. 2020 was the summer of love. She said 2025 will be the summer of jihad. You'll say. Wow. Again, what do you expect from Laura Loomer? All right. So, and by the way, speaking of expectations, you should expect even more of that in the coming months. The meltdown here is, for one, absolutely glorious. All the masks are off. But also, it's grotesque and racist. And there it is. Wow. All right. Moving on. Following the inauguration of President Donald Trump, shares of Trump Media, the parent company of Truth Social,
Truth Central,
actually saw their stock soar as investors pumped money into this platform. However, 6 months later, those same investors are coming up a bit empty, which is a nice little bit of FAFO here. According to a new report from CNN's Matt Egan, the president's venture into social media remains to be a financial black hole. I mean, that's pretty clear, right? Losing another $32 million in the first quarter. Wow. With Trump Media shares having lost 48% of their value since Trump moved back into the Oval Office. Egan reports that investment into the company is, quote, badly trailing the S&P 500's 5% gain over that span. If you look at just the time since Trump took office, Trump Media shares are down even more, roughly 56%. Oops.
Whoopsie.
Yeah. Oh, it appears that Donald's pump and dump is down in the dumps.
They call them dumps, big, massive dumps.
The biggest dumps, the best dumps. Okay. In the money-losing first quarter, Trump's company generated a minuscule $821,000 in revenue. Now, I'm not saying that isn't a good chunk of revenue. I could use $821,000 right now. Oh, yeah, that'd be great. I'd be set for a long time. That said, their expenses vastly outweigh what they brought in. Exactly. In the first quarter, they lost $31.7 million, according to Variety. Wow. Now, to be fair, though, that was better than the first quarter of last year, where the company had a net loss of $327.6 million. Most of which, to be fair, is a result of the merger costs with the, special acquisition company, the SPAC, and then, of course, there are costs associated with that and winding that down. Oh, okay, sure. But at the end of the day, though, what's really important to point out is that this stock sucks. And yet, it's somehow still worth way more than it should be. It is way overvalued. Steve Sosnick, chief strategist at Interactive Brokers, told CNN, quote, by conventional measures, this stock is quite expensive. It is a money-losing company with negligible revenue. However, that stock has always defied conventional valuation metrics, which means, putting it plainly, this stock is not rooted in financial reality. I mean, a financial reality, what the hell is that? What name so? Okay, can't figure it out. No. Okay, sure. So it's not rooted in financial reality, but that maybe that's because True Social is filled with throngs of Donald Trump's adoring fans, which is giving people hope for the future, right? That must be it. That must be it. I mean, that must somehow justify the massively inflated valuation of it, right? No, it actually doesn't. The report goes on to note that among social media websites, True Social barely registers when it comes to number of users. That's right. While there has been a 106% increase in users, doesn't mean a whole lot. See, when you do that math, even if you have a 100% increase in users, well, that doesn't mean much unless you already had a lot of users to begin with. True Social did not. Okay, if you start with 12 people and you have a 100% increase, you still don't have a lot of people. It's still rather small. Okay, and that's kind of the problem. True Social's daily active users happen to be dwarfed by X, formerly Twitter, which right now stands at 131.9 million. Wow. Now, it also trails Threads at 112.9 million and Reddit's 66.2 million. Now, even BlueSky, which is a very, very new entrant into social media and is still quite small, right? Now, I like BlueSky. I'm on BlueSky. And so, yes, but I still got to admit that, yeah, they're small. They're small. They're nowhere near Twitter. They're not a Twitter killer. They're not a Threads killer. In fact, they're trailing. They're really small. That said, BlueSky still has about 10 times the daily amount of active users on it as True Social. 10 times more than True Social. Wow. So basically, if you were on True Social, you are basically screaming into an empty orange void. Yeah, that's what it is. Sorry, not sorry. I'm just reporting reality here. Look, according to David F. Carr, editor of Insights, News and Research at SimilarWeb, True Social did have a record day on Saturday when the president announced that he had launched a surprise attack on Iran. But even then, the web traffic and app usage were less than 1% of what X had attracted. And compared to BlueSky, they had millions more web visitors and app users than True Social. Sad baby. Okay, What a disaster. You could say that perhaps they would be a bit
Disappointed!
in these results. I don't know. That said, I wish I could say that I am shocked that another one of Donald Trump's companies is a financial loser. But let's be honest, only someone who has been living under a rock, watching Fox News, or posting on True Social wouldn't realize that. And there you go. At least we got a little bit of FAFO here. But we got to get into the bad news now. I know. So let's do it. On Thursday, the extremist majority of the Supreme Court ruled against Planned Parenthood. Now, their 6-3 decision would block the organization from being able to sue states that have opted to pull Medicaid funding from them because of the fact that they do provide abortions, even though no federal money actually is allowed to go towards abortion care. Doesn't matter. Now, the majority opinion written by Justice Neil Gorsuch was, he wrote the opinion here, and here's what that said. Rather than trying to square a circle, we think it's the better course is the one that our precedents suggest. So now let me be clear, right? This was not a ruling on the merits of having Medicaid funding be able to be used by Planned Parenthood. What this was is that it basically was a ruling on procedure, okay? One of those things. So now the law, he said, uses clear and unambiguous rights, creating language, so neither supports a private lawsuit. At issue, of course, is a Reconstruction era law allowing people to sue the federal government in court for violations of their civil rights. And so their ruling was basically like, well, it doesn't actually specifically say that, so we can't allow this. We can't allow the states to sue. Or I'm sorry, we can't allow the Planned Parenthood to sue the states. Okay. So now Justice Clarence Thomas wrote, plaintiffs now routinely use the law alleging constitutional violations that would have been unimaginable in 1871. Hey, do you know what else was unimaginable in 1871? Having a smartphone. Or having a black Supreme Court justice. That would also be unimaginable in 1871. But we had those. And look, we have to deal with things that are relevant in the current age that people back then could not have foreseen. Perhaps that is why the Constitution is a living document, just saying that can adapt with the times. Now, wait, what does this have to do with that? Well, the reason that I bring it up is because Thomas calls himself an originalist, as do many of the Heritage Foundation picks that have made up the Supreme Court majority that continues to vote the way that they're voting. It's very limiting, okay? Seeing yourself as a originalist to the Constitution, because you're basically saying that, oh yeah, no, because the Constitution is not a living document, which means it cannot change to reflect the realities of the day, of the current age that we live in. I guess we can, since it can't change, we can't really rule on these particular things. So I guess Reconstruction era law, it doesn't really count. We can't really add that in there. We can't really allow people to sue the states for, constitutional violations, because, that's too new. So, sorry, we're going to have to rule against you. Again, this is a technical ruling, okay? Not based on the merits at all. Which, of course, led to a sharp debate between Thomas and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who wrote the dissent for the court's liberals, the liberal minority. Jackson argued that the majority was weakening the landmark civil rights protections that Congress enacted during Reconstruction, and said the court's ruling is likely to result in tangible harm to real people. At a minimum, she says, it will deprive Medicaid recipients in South Carolina of their only meaningful way of enforcing a right that Congress has expressly granted to them, which is the right to be able to sue the government for violating their constitutional rights. And more importantly, it will strip those South Carolinians and countless other Medicaid recipients across the country of a deeply personal freedom, the ability to decide who treats us at our most vulnerable. Hey, whatever happened to patient choice? Apparently, if you're on Medicaid, you don't get that anymore. Now, this case goes back to a 2018 decision made by South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, which banned Medicaid funding for the state's 2 Planned Parenthood clinics. Now, McMaster argued that those payments were just a subsidy for abortions, to which the state had already effectively banned. McMaster's order, while aimed at restricting access to abortion, had the effect of also blocking patients from receiving any of the other myriad services at Planned Parenthoods, including contraception, breast exams, and testing for STIs or cancer. Yes, Planned Parenthood does far more than just abortions. In fact, abortion actually makes up about only 3% of the services that they offer. Most of the service they offer actually is contraception, STI testing, cancer screenings, etc. However, if you're in South Carolina and you need those, well, I guess you can't go there now and have Medicaid pay for it. Sorry. So now, of course, that's why they sued, because a huge chunk of Planned Parenthood's revenue, what they need to operate and give those services, a lot of them, by the way, many of those services are free, do come from government funding like Medicaid. So this is a disaster for Planned Parenthood. Now, they argued that the restrictions encroached on patients' deeply personal rights to choose their own doctor. Oh, what's that? Republicans? Didn't you guys say that you didn't want the government to get between you and your doctor? Well, what the hell is this? This is the government getting between you and your doctor, saying that you can't go to that doctor because that's a Planned Parenthood doctor. We don't agree with that. Oh, okay. And there it is. Guess you didn't mean that, huh? Here's the thing. This is going to impact about 1/5 of South Carolina residents. Yeah, that's a lot of people. They're insured through Medicaid, according to court records. But it won't just impact those people in South Carolina. It will impact a lot of people across the country. It goes way beyond just one state. It's likely to encourage this decision other red state governors to cut their own funding for Planned Parenthood from Medicaid programs. Now, South Carolina, of course, was represented by the conservative religious law group Alliance Defending Freedom, which apparently they are not actually defending freedom at all. Everything they do seems to be focused on taking away freedom from people, so it's pretty Orwellian, their name. But they argued that the Medicaid law was not a civil rights statute. The law doesn't specifically include language giving people the right to sue, which of course gave the state the perfect defense, and not only defunding Planned Parenthood, but now taking away reproductive care for those on Medicaid, especially contraceptive services. Look, this is not an accident. This is not an accident. This is by design. This administration is all about promoting neonatalism, which basically boiled down to the most simplest aspects here means we want more people to have babies. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing to want more kids. No, but the problem is how they're doing it, right? They're taking away access to contraception for poor people. Okay, that means more unplanned pregnancies. You cut people off from accessing Planned Parenthood, from accessing contraception, you're going to have more unplanned pregnancy. Combine that with the abortion bans. Combine that with, of course, no longer teaching comprehensive sex ed in high schools, for example, and you end up having more unplanned pregnancy and forced birth, which achieves the right-wing goal of more babies, except you're going to have more babies that are born in poverty. But again, that is the point. That is the purpose here. Because kids born to poorer families often do not do as well academically. Poverty messes with your brain. It really does. Which means these children are more likely to become an easily exploitable labor force. Which means they will not complain about getting paid very, very little to do very, very dangerous work. I think that's the overall goal here, honestly, and why they're restricting access to quality education, healthcare, reproductive care specifically, and while, of course, continuing to push people to have more and more babies, despite the fact that they are purposely making the economic conditions in this country terrible for working people. All of this really feels like it's in service to Project 2025. Which is, of course, the stated goal there is to help very, very rich people by creating a cheap, exploitable domestic labor force. And one that will, of course, continue to vote Republican in order to keep them in power. At the end of the day, this was never, ever about being pro-life. It's basically pro-slavery. All right. Moving on. That's a spicy take. But you'll see why it's necessary. Capitol Police were filmed arresting and zip-tying the wrists of people in wheelchairs who were protesting against the gutting of Medicaid. Wow. Now, that video was shared by political activist Aaron Black over on BlueSky, so I want to give credit to him for spreading this because it's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous what's going on. Like, what the hell is happening here? According to Scripps News, which also ran footage of the protests, these protesters in the video were completely peaceful because they're in wheelchairs, okay? And they had been chanting no cuts to Medicaid as police moved in. Scripps also reported that some of the protesters had briefly unfurled a banner reading, "Don't kill us," before cops swiftly took it down. Yes. You can't put that banner up there. Now, Capitol Police told the Daily Beast that a total of 33 people had been arrested for protesting inside the congressional building, which is illegal, although other reports have put that number at around 60 arrests. Now, another person was arrested for apparently crossing a police line outside. Yes. Now, Capitol Police said, it should be noted that there are other places on Capitol grounds where people can lawfully demonstrate without issue. Oh, yeah, go somewhere else. Yeah, and demonstrate. Go somewhere else and protest. Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Uh, I see. I see. So since they were in the Capitol building, it's an illegal protest. Well, we had to remove them. We didn't have a choice. We had to remove these people that were in their wheelchairs. Okay, but did you have to, I don't know, zip tie their hands together? What did you think that they were going to do? What did you think they were going to do? They were also charged, by the way, the crowding, obstructing, and incommoding. Ah, okay. So, yeah. So we're going to take a bunch of grandmas and grandpas, people in wheelchairs, zip tie them, arrest them, and charge them with crimes. Oh, okay. But the zip ties, though, I can't get over that. What, do you think they were going to escape or something? You think they were going to attack you? These are not J6ers, okay? They're not. They're not spreading feces, breaking windows. They're not calling to hang the vice president. They're not doing any of that. They're there because they don't want to lose their health care. They don't want to lose their lifeline. They will die, some of them, without this health care. Okay? One side, by the way, and speaking of J6ers, one side rioted because they lost an election. Their guy lost an election. And they got a pardon afterwards. All of them pardoned, every single one of them. Okay? While the other side, they quietly protested in their wheelchairs, saying that, don't kill us. Don't kill us. Don't gut Medicaid or we will die. And, of course, this is how they're treated. How they're treated. And this right here, by the way, is America. In a nutshell. In a nutshell. Now, of course, this rightfully has been getting a lot of attention here, as it should. In fact, the Tennessee Holler posted this. If you're zip tying grandmas protesting losing health care, maybe you're not the good guys in the story. Yeah, no, this should be a total, are we the baddies moment? Because you are. You sure are acting like them. Okay? And that's what's going on here. Look, it is so gross to see this, especially after all the sympathy and the defense that Capitol Police got after January 6th, after the MAGA rioters. So to see them do this, again, to me, it's not a surprise because police will always protect power and Capitol, two things that these grandmas obviously do not have. It doesn't surprise me. Okay, it doesn't surprise me. It shouldn't surprise you. But if it does, and you are outraged, good. Let this be an awakening to see the reality of this country and to see what police are actually protecting. And then think, oh, maybe this is why we want to, the left is calling for defunding the police. Exactly. Now, one user on X, Burrow Barney, writes, zip ties, how on earth do they think a disabled person confined to a wheelchair would attack them? Run over their foot? I don't know, maybe. Another said, why would you zip tie elderly people in wheelchairs? One guy looked fully quadriplegic. WTF. Lots of reactions like that. Now, get into the details here. The protest was organized by Popular Democracy in Action, which said of Trump's big nasty bill, nearly 80% of Americans support preserving and expanding Medicaid, which is true. Yet this bill would do the opposite, slashing $880 billion from CARE to fund $4.5 trillion in tax breaks for billionaires. Yep, exactly. Over 16 million people could lose their coverage over the next decade if the proposed spending bill passes, and new work requirements threaten to strip life-saving care from those who need it the most. Exactly. Again, these work requirements won't do anything but kick eligible people off the rolls. Eligible people who, by the way, already do work. Yes, about 65% of people on Medicaid already work, either full or part-time. 64 to 65%. The rest, of course, are people who are disabled, people who are caregivers or are children or being educated. So where's the issue here? Where's the issue? Well, in reality, there is no issue. There isn't a rash of people who are able-bodied that are taking advantage of the system, taking advantage of healthcare. Oh my God. Not real. That's not real. But what they're doing is basically social Darwinism. They are cutting people off, the most vulnerable off, from their healthcare. So, now, they also said in a press conference before their civic action that Congress needs to divest from the endless wars abroad, like the one that nearly was started by Donald Trump in bombing Iran unilaterally, by the way, and invest in our communities at home. Participants have one clear message for senators currently debating this bill. We need to kill this bill before it kills us all. That's pretty simple. In addition to Popular Democracy in Action, of course, you had other groups that joined in, including the Service Employees International Union, based, Planned Parenthood, Federation of America, Debt Collective, Stand Up Alaska, Action NC, Arkansas Community Organizations, and American Disabled for Attendant Programs Today. They all took part in Wednesday's protest, which is great. Now, speaking of Planned Parenthood, which just had a court ruling against them, stopping them from being able to sue state governments for cutting them off of Medicaid. Here is President and CEO Alexis McGill Johnson. She said, quote, in this big bad betrayal of a bill, there is a provision to defund Planned Parenthood. Half of our patients rely on Medicaid to get access to care. What they would do is put at risk a third of all of our health centers, and there's nowhere for our patients to go to be absorbed into the system. That puts at risk access to contraception, breast exams, cancer exams, wellness exams, access to STI testing and treatment, all just to give billionaires a tax cut. Yeah, and here's the kicker, she adds. For the 1 million patients who rely on that care, 90% of those health centers are in states with abortion access. Remember, about 3%, only about 3% of what Planned Parenthood does is abortion. The rest is all those other, real health care. And by the way, abortion is health care. But I'm saying real healthcare needs that people have. But it doesn't matter to them. She adds, so we need to call this what it is, a backdoor abortion ban. Yes, but I will add that it's so much more worse than that. I already mentioned it's social Darwinism. They are knowingly trying to kill off the poor and the disabled so they can give all the resources to the very rich and powerful. That is the reality of the situation. Call it what it is. And by the way, the Capitol Police, they are defending that. And yes, sure, they can say, well, you don't understand. I was just doing my job. That's it. I was just following orders, guys. I was following orders. That's exactly the problem. Following those orders means defending a corrupt system. It means defending corrupt politicians. It means insulating them from having to see the very people that they are going to end up killing if they pass this bill. Okay. One more here. Planned Parenthood does great work for family planning and well-check exam. Exactly. And that's one of the things that obviously the right wing does not want you to have access to. All right. One more story here, and it's as rage-inducing as the rest. It appears that some of the rehired first fired, then rehired, then fired government employees who had been doged at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, have been getting notices from the government demanding money from them. Yes. I mean, imagine being yanked around like that on a roller coaster of you're hired, you're fired, you're rehired, you're fired, blah, blah, blah. And then getting a notice that, oh, by the way, you owe money. What? Now, the workers told NBC News that they have been receiving debt notices from the government saying that they must pay for healthcare coverage when they are employed, coverage which some of them said we didn't even actually have to begin with. 3 former employees shared some letters from June 16th titled Demand Notice for Payment, which alleged that the workers owed government money for healthcare premiums during their pay periods in which their healthcare plans had already expired. In fact, one person, Yale said Green, told NBC News she is a former special assistant in the agency's Office of Oceanic and Atmosphere Research. Quote, they're trying to bill me for health insurance after I was fired. I had no coverage. It's just more salt in the wound of how incompetent all of this has been. Well, look, if it's one thing that you can count on from the Trump regime, it's rank incompetence. Of course. Of course. Now, the letters went on to say that if the debt was not paid, then obviously you would be reported to a credit bureau, which would lower your credit score, which is really disastrous, especially in this country, where apparently you can't do anything without a good credit score anymore. Can't get a loan for a house, can't get a loan for a vehicle. Hell, in some place, you can't even get a job. I mean, there are jobs where you have to get a good credit score to even get that job, to even be considered for that position. And no, it doesn't mean that those jobs, you don't have to be working with money. It's not like you're working for a bank or anything like that. No, any job can use your credit score and say, oh, you got a bad credit score. I guess we can't give you that job. Well, how the hell are you supposed to fix your credit score if you can't get a job? It's so incredibly messed up and can do a ton of damage to a person, or again, with no fault of their own. No fault of their own at all. And so there you go. Yeah, can't rent a house or an apartment. Can't do anything without a decent credit score. And so, yes, this is an absolute existential threat to a lot of people over, again, bills that they don't actually owe, money that they don't actually owe after getting doged. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Now, Sarah Cooley, who was the NOAA's Ocean Acidification Program Director, was fired near the end of February, saying, quote, it's very gloomy and threatening language. Yeah, absolutely. Though, of course, not all employees had received a letter, but some of the ones who did are being charged hundreds of dollars. The Commerce Department had fired more than 600 probationary employees, which, by the way, these are just people who had not been there or who had been there less than 2 years. So you could transfer from other departments. You could have been working at one department for 14 years, transfer to a new one, suddenly you're a probationary employee. And then Trump gets into office, puts Elon Musk in to Doge, and you get doged, lose your job. And then on top of it, oh, by the way, you owe for health insurance that you actually didn't even have. Wow. So this is what happened to 600 probationary employees who were working at the NOAA during Musk's Doge cuts. Many of the fired workers were meteorologists, hurricane hunters, storm modelers, people that are important. Okay. In March, a San Francisco federal judge ruled that those probationary workers who had been laid off and worked for the government for less than a year had to be reinstated. The NOAA then placed those workers on administrative leave. Because, of course, The same month, the Trump administration revealed that it would be rehiring 24,500 federal workers who had been doaged. But in April, the Supreme Court paused many of those reinstatements, and so the NOAA decided to fire people again. That's right. I mean, you want to talk about a roller coaster of bullshit. There it is. And of course, the cherry on top of that shit sandwich, or shit sundae, I should say, is now you got people that have to pay for health insurance that they didn't even have access to, like Sayed Green, who said that, hey, I didn't have access to these necessary health benefits when they should have been available to me while on administrative leave. In fact, Sayed Green said that she underwent surgery while on that leave, signing up for temporary continuation of coverage in order to pay for her health benefits. Yet, of course, the program, it didn't work. She didn't actually have coverage after all. She had discovered after her surgery that health coverage wasn't even active, which means she had to pay twice for health coverage that she hadn't even had received. In fact, she said, I'm getting letters demanding payment of more than $14,000 for my surgery. Not only did they not give us the coverage we paid for, now they're sending us debt notices for the coverage we didn't even have. I mean, just talk about being screwed from both ends. I mean, I would be absolutely livid. Livid. Now, another former employee, Sabrina Valenti, who used to work as a budget analyst at NOAA, said the frenzy to fire, rehire, and then refire employees has led to many mistakes on the part of the agency. Quote, I was fired 4 months ago. I still don't even have proof that I was fired. Wow. Just, wow. Now, here's the thing. Maybe this could be considered good news. I don't know. Not a lot of this is good. However, according to NBC, after they had reached out to the agency's media affairs group for comment, probationary employees began receiving more notices from the NOAA. Here's one of them. Our office has been made aware that you may have received a debt notice from the National Finance Center. Please know that we are working with the NFC to resolve this. No action is needed from you right now. We'll keep you updated as we have more information. I can only hope that perhaps this will be rectified and the debts will be wiped out. That the $14,000, said Green, is purported to have to owe for her surgery. Hopefully that gets taken care of. Hopefully that gets paid, and that these people, these employees who've been jerked around since February, don't actually have to pay for the health insurance that they were not supposed to have. I hope that all of this gets fixed and that these people are not on the hook for the disastrous decisions of Doge. All right. I mean, all of this is absolutely infuriating. And by the way, it's one of the reasons why healthcare should not be tied to your employment. Period. Medicare for all, now. Not yesterday, now. Not 2 years from now, now. Medicare for all. Okay, anyway. Yeah, we should absolutely have national healthcare. It's unacceptable. Absolutely freaking unacceptable. And just disgusting. Okay, anyway. Yep, that's what I got. One more thing before I go here. VMan29397 with the very kind $5 super chat just says, I love the right-wing whining about Zoran being a socialist when NYC's most beloved mayor, Fiorella de LaGuardia, was a big-time leftist. Yes, well, again, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that nobody even knows what the word socialist means anymore because it's been used as a pejorative for so long. It has no meaning anymore. And same thing with leftist. Okay, they don't know what leftist actually is. They don't know. They just have no idea don't know what communism is, don't know what socialism is. They don't know anything. And I'm speaking mainly of the right, but again, there are a lot of centrist politicians and centrists out there that also have no idea what those things actually mean. So, welcome to our society where we have information and knowledge everywhere, and nobody seems to be able to use it. Nobody seems to know anything anymore. And that is kind of why we're in the position that we are now. All right. Booftit says universal healthcare and universal living wages. Yes. Abso-freaking-lutely. You just call me a
Pink-haired communist.
and I will gladly take that label. Okay. I know. No hair. No hair. Can't have pink hair without the hair. All right, everybody. That's all I got for you all today. Thank you for watching. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Sign up to become a patron, patreon.com/jeffwaldorf. Or you can become a member of our YouTube page and support the show that way. There's plenty of ways that you can do it. You can support us on our Facebook page. You can support us on Twitch. All those wonderful things. Thank you all for watching. Love you all, and have a good day. We'll see you back here tomorrow for a fantastic Friday show. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you.